Perfect. So to introduce who we are, so we are a group of the Coppell ISD licensed specialists in school psychology. We have Amber Lindbeck that's here today, Dr. Mary Jo Staub, Dr. Kathy Stroud, and myself, Kirsten Ludwigsack. Lori Parker is another LSSP here in the district. She unfortunately was not able to attend. If you scroll through, you can see, put some faces with names. Kathy. No, you're good. Okay, so before we move on to kind of the meat of the presentation, we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what an LSSP is. So in our meetings or when you've met with some of us, we are licensed specialists in school psychology, or often we just introduce ourselves as LSSPs because that other part is quite a mouthful. And what we do throughout the district, as you saw, we are assigned to certain campuses and we consult with parents, teachers, and staff. We do assessments to look at if there are any social, emotional, or behavioral needs for your learner that need to be identified and addressed. And then we also provide psychological services directly to learners. If that's deemed necessary, you'll probably see us at ARDS if we're involved as well. Yeah, we do a variety of things. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Amber.
Okay, I'm Amber Lindbeck. I have been with the district for 15 years, so I saw some names on here that I'm so happy to see you guys here today. But yes, I'm one of the LSSPs, Licensed Specialist in School Psychology. And I get to start us off with the social emotional learning. What the heck is it? It's a process of acquiring knowledge and skills to engage, interact, and build relationships with other people. That's so important with schools being out with this pandemic. Our children learn a lot of that at home or at school. But since we've been in this pandemic for almost a year, we are counting on parents to help us out and make sure your child learns those, learn those areas. Okay, next slide, Kathy.
I am trying, I promise.
Okay, and what exactly are the benefits of SEL, social emotional learning? Students are more successful when they know and can manage themselves, understand the perspectives of others, and relate effectively with them, and make sound choices about personal and social decisions. Now you're up, Kathy.
All right, so this is just a little bit about the benefits. It's always great to know why it is we're doing what we're doing, and you know, it is sometimes hard work and requires a lot of patience on our parts to kind of foster some of these things and do some of this direct teaching of social emotional learning. So it's good to keep those benefits in mind. And these are just a few of them: increased persistence, more positive feelings about others, increased social competence, better academic performance, better grades, fewer conduct problems, more confidence, a sense of purpose. All of those are just some of the benefits to social emotional learning. And what are the long-term impacts? So research tells us that children who learn social emotional competence are more likely to graduate. They're more likely to be ready for college when they get there. And those are two different things. We want, you know, not only for them to graduate and have the academic skills, but to be ready for college and to be ready for those things like time management and self-awareness. Improved mental health, obviously something that we're all very passionate about. Increased persistence, being able to persist and work towards goals. positive family and work relationships. I know probably everyone on this call is wanting that for their children to have a positive family relationship, to have a good working relationship with each other. Engaged citizenship, reduce criminal behavior, probably high up there on the list, and then just overall career success as well.
And it's back to me. Social emotional learning. There's 6 areas. As we move on to the other slides, I'm going to coach you through these areas, but I just want to bring them up. Communication, it's huge, both verbally and non-verbally. We want to teach our kids that. We want to teach our learners that, but you want to teach your child that as well. Cooperation, working together with others. Empathy, empathy is so huge, and parents, you are such a huge part of teaching that empathy. Empathy is certainly learned, and they learn by example and role modeling and watching others. Teach them to understand the feelings of other people. Emotion regulation, the ability to identify feelings and manage them. Impulse control, the ability to control your behaviors for short and understand the short and long-term consequences. And then social initiation and interaction, making and keeping relationships by knowing when and how to work and play with others. Before I coach you through that, go ahead, Kathy. Before I coach you through that, I want to make sure you know the different levels your child should be at. So social emotional learning age norms is next. She will pull it up for me in a minute. There we go. So you can just relate if you're in these, if your children are in these areas. Just remember, in kindergarten through 2nd grade, your child should know or should be developing preferred playmates and identify best friends. They should be becoming more cooperative with the rules. They understand differences between real life and pretend play. And they start developing sensitivities, which is hard as a parent. Grades 3 and 5, they can control their anger most of the time, and they're very good at expressing their emotions. Peer interaction becomes very important to them at this age. We always think little 3rd graders are little adults after having them in kindergarten through 2nd grade. The social influence of their parents start to decrease, and this is where it begins, parents. They show good sportsmanship, or they can. They're aware of fair and unfair behaviors or situations. They're able to choose the best decision and analyze their problems, and they spend time with a few close friends. They start determining their tight friends. Grades 6 and 8, the middle school, they go from that very peaceful, kind, loving, small elementary school to the middle school. Competitive social groups start to happen. They value the opinion of friends more than their parents. They compare self to others. And they're sensitive to what others think. They become self-sufficient with homework. You can start letting them be in charge of that. Organizational skills are developing, and they start questioning authority. High school, they turn to their friends for solving their problems. They seek out new experiences. They understand that their actions have consequences, and they know their strengths. They should know their strengths and weaknesses by now. So on to coaching. When we go through this today, there's 5 ways to teach social and emotional learning. I'm going to cover the first one, which is coaching. Go ahead. Coaching. Emotion coaching is a strategy parents can use to teach their children to regulate their skills. This involves you to actively and purposely being responsive to your child's emotions, awareness of your child's emotional state, acceptance of your child's feelings, and give instructions on how to manage them, and helping your child to regulate those feelings. So now I'll move on to my coaching. Back to the 6 areas we talked about earlier for social emotional learning. Communication. Remember, encourage your child to talk to you. Make it a routine every day to get in that car and talk to you. I think we know by now it's not a good question to say, how was your day? Focus more into making it a routine of, a topic of the day, or an act of kindness you did, or what was the best part of the day. But make it a routine, whether it's car way home, the way to the grocery store, getting ready for dinner. Make it a routine that there's talking going on every single day, and you will build your child's communication skills as well as a better relationship with your child. The next one is cooperation. Encourage activities around the household. We know right now, in this pandemic, we're counting on you guys for a lot of these social emotional learning skills to develop. Promote things through making dinner. Everybody should have a job. It shouldn't be mom's doing the cooking or dad's doing the cooking and you text them to come eat. Everybody should have a role. And that shows teamwork. That shows family cooperation. Somebody peel the potatoes. We peel potatoes anymore. Somebody fill the glasses of water. Somebody set the table, but it's teamwork. That way you get everybody in the room working on a goal, and that's cooperating with each other. So really try to get that into your game plan at home. And then, of course, game nights, family game nights would be great. And then also observe when your kids are playing with each other. Right now, it's hard to play with other kids, but really observe your kid and correct them when you can for that cooperation piece. And once they know you're watching, they want to please. So keep that in mind. The empathy, the third one over there. Teach children to understand the emotions of other. As I mentioned earlier, parents, you play a huge role in this. Talk about feelings. Talk about your feelings. Talk about how the child behaved and how it affected somebody else's feelings. But really get them to know empathy. And pretend play is a big piece of that. Encourage pretend play in your household. Encourage playing house, boy or girl. Encourage that. Encourage, I don't even care if your boy plays with dolls, but encourage playing with stuffed animals so you can see that empathy and that love and that caring in your child. Playing house is huge. I have a little 6-year-old and he plays with dinosaurs and it's very active, very aggressive. And I try to switch it over and you know what, let's play doctor with these dinosaurs and take care of them. So always keep in your mind, even though they got to be rough and tough like that, but encourage that empathy, whether it's a dinosaur, stuffed animal, or a doll. Okay, going down to the next one, emotional regulation and impulse control. Teach your child ways to regulate and cope with his emotions, his or her emotions. I always like to tell parents, remember, it has to be released somehow, some way. So we can't build it up and we can't just say stop. We have to teach them the strategies. Release it in a positive way. That's what we call replacement behaviors. Instead of slamming that door, why don't you go talk to your pillow? Or instead of screaming at each other, why don't you go take a walk and or take a drink of water? But really, really trying to teach them, don't just say stop, make sure we really tell them what to do and how to do it. And as we teach them, have them teach it back if they see us yelling in the house or anything like that. So and we'll get to that role playing next, or modeling. The last one I want to talk about is social initiation and interaction. 3 areas that you got to work with when you're doing that is cooperation, conflict, and social exchange. Make sure you teach your kid cooperation so he can hang out and be with others. Conflict, he needs to know he has a teammate or a friend and he can work it out with somebody. And then that social exchange, make sure he understands that there's give and take in every relationship, in every conversation, and in every friend you have. And when you teach him that and show him that, he's going to be a great little cool guy or girl. So keep those 5, like I said, 5 up there, areas in mind. And then we're going to roll on to modeling. And I think that is, I don't know who that is.
That's me. So I just wanted to add a quick note. As we're going through this and saying communication, keep in mind communication is not just spoken language. Communication can be through pictures, it can be through assistive technology, it can be through gestures. And the beauty of social emotional learning and growing your child's social emotional well-being is that these strategies and skills can be catered to meet your learner wherever they are in their development and with wherever their needs are. So modeling, not only are you watching your learner, but your learner is really watching you. And so this is an opportunity for you to use your own situations to kind of show what you want them to do, but also to help them recognize that, us adults make mistakes. That's okay. We're going to work on, those actions and outcomes. And then that last one is for them to see, like I said, that adults have difficulties too. This is something that within the school setting, we try and model a lot. For example, if I'm late to meet with a learner, I will sit down and apologize and say, hey, I am so sorry. You must be kind of frustrated. I know you were waiting for me, but I didn't manage my time well. Next time I'm going to do better. That just helps them to feel less alone and like less that they're the only ones struggling with certain situations. So here's some strategies to kind of when you're think of opportunities for modeling. So you want to identify the situation and emotions. So for example, I just kind of walked through, sorry, I'm late. You must be feeling frustrated. You can also talk about a situation where, hey, I was so stressed out this morning because I was late for a meeting. And then depending on your learner's communication level, you can also look at possible outcomes in talking through the situation, or again, bringing in pictures and offering choices of, I could do this or I could do this, and seeing if they're able to help work through that problem with you. And then also looking at implementing it. So follow through, show them that you are taking what they're saying into consideration and also following through on what you said you were going to do. That's a big one. If you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. So that's hard though, because sometimes we can draw a line and not necessarily want to actually hold to it because it might be difficult in that moment. So just make sure when you say, if that happens one more time, this is going to whatever, implement and follow through on what you've modeled that you said you were going to do. And then also looking back at evaluating, so how did it go? Don't be afraid to say if it didn't go well. Don't be afraid to, totally missed the mark on that one. Or, I thought this was going to work out well, but it really didn't. I can't stress to you enough that as important as it is for children to see adults modeling what we want them to do, it's equally as important for them to see, when we do try something and it doesn't go well. So looking at preschool, in terms of modeling, just demonstrating how to share. If your learner's playing with something, you can say, oh, my turn, and then your turn. Make sure to just keep it simple and concrete, incorporate it into that play aspect or, whatever they're particularly interested in. Looking at elementary school, so you might want to use a situation or decision that your child's having a difficult time with. So as Amber talked about, this is kind of when that social aspect can come into play. So you can demonstrate or just discuss how to make friends, talk about a time, show them a time when you had to meet new coworkers or had to, introduce yourself, had to, I can't think of anything at the moment, but just walking through those steps. And then secondary, connecting with situations they might be experiencing. So, this is often when academics become a huge important component to their life. So you might want to demonstrate or talk about a day at work that was really hard for you, or a task or a challenge that you had, and how you went through the steps to problem solve and how it went for you. And then get them involved to say, well, what do you think? What would you have done differently? What, from your experience, what have you seen? Then this rolls into role playing. So Amber also touched on this, helping kids practice skills by acting out behaviors. And so that could be through occupational, pretending to be a doctor, a teacher, a builder. Sometimes students aren't particularly fond of pretending to be certain things. So maybe you pretend to be the doctor. And let's say you have a doctor's appointment coming up. You pretend to be the doctor and help them get familiar with what's going to happen. Or sometimes students have a difficult time with getting their hair cut. Pretend to be the barber. You take the role on of being the role player. Also, there's opportunities for kind of fantasy. So pretending to be favorite characters like Elsa or Superman, tying a towel around them like it's a cape and flying all over. Using using bubbles to pretend it's snowing and you're Elsa in the land of Frozen. There's a lot of opportunities within the home to take current objects, a wooden spoon as a magic wand. Think about what your child's favorite movies are, what their favorite cartoons are, if they watch TV, or if they gravitate towards something in a book. Think of how you can take some of those elements and bring it into your home. And then real life situations. So practicing what to do using real life situations. So for example, as I was driving to the school where I am at right now, in my head, I was kind of thinking about, okay, pretending that I'm here talking to you all and going through what I wanted to say and just practicing that. With especially as students get older and start to face some tricky social situations, or maybe needing to have an uncomfortable conversation with a teacher, it can be helpful to say, okay, pretend I'm your teacher. Tell me what you want to say. And you can go back and forth, or they can be the teacher. They can be the person that they're going to have to talk to. And you can model, see what I did there? You can model what might be a good way of saying it, or on the flip side, modeling what might not be a good thing and letting them understand, ooh, that did sound kind of bad. Or, ooh, when mom or dad weren't looking at me as they were trying to say this information, I kind of was wondering if they were paying attention. There are a lot of opportunities to incorporate these things into daily life. And then it also, when the time comes for those situations, hopefully they'll be more acclimated and feel more comfortable.
Back to me again. Environment. Your child's environment or surrounding can have a significant impact on his emotions and behaviors. And so it's up to us as the school, as well as parents, to set up a positive environment. In different areas, in two extremes, that make the environment peaceful. Make sure the environment or the surroundings, everybody knows around that they can talk, they can express their feelings, they can be open, they can be trusted, and it's a trusting atmosphere or environment. And then also set the stage or make boundaries. Set up a positive and respectful space. And respectful is very big when you want to talk to your child or want your child to talk to you. Make sure there's no earphones. When he gets in the car or she gets in the car and you guys are ready to talk, make sure the earphones are taken out. Just set up the boundaries, set up the pattern, set up the routine that this is the rules and this is how we go. And the next thing, make sure there's no loud music playing in their bedrooms when you go talk to them, or TV in the background. It's just about respect. And that child will learn, this is how I communicate with others. And keep technology to a minimum. Make sure when you have that environment in your home, you don't text your child to come eat. You don't text your child to have a conversation. Keep the technology away so you can get some emotions, some facial expressions, some hugs, things like that. Make sure that environment is very warm, respectful, and has routines and consistencies in it. So you guys can better talk. Sure.
Before you, I was just going to say, so as you're setting these boundaries for your child, make sure you're also following these boundaries. I know it's so easy when you're at the dinner table, if you get a text or, you have your Apple Watch on to look, but kind of going back to that modeling, just like we're watching them, they're getting cues from us. So if we start using our technology or devices, then it sends a confusing message and not so much a setting of respect. Now, we recognize that, again, some learners use technology devices in order to communicate, or sometimes, it's absolutely necessary. And we're certainly not saying, never, never. We get that there are moments, especially during a 5-day power outage, where certain things are just going to have to go out the window. But just make sure you are following the same boundaries you are expecting them.
Mm-hmm. And the next one is talking. So who's got that one?
That is me. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, perfect. It didn't switch over to me. All right, so now we're going to talk about talking. And we've already kind of touched on a little bit of this. Some of these things that we're talking about may sound a little repetitive, but that's kind of just because they tend to build on each other. And so we're not going to do coaching or modeling absent talking and good conversation. So you may hear a few of these things more than once, but I feel like it's really important to kind of keep all of these things in mind, and never hurts to hear more than one thing. So when you're talking to a child, and a lot of these are truths, whether you're talking to your preschooler or your elementary child or your teenager, are you absolutely going to use some different words and some different language? Yes. And are you going to use some different strategies? Absolutely. But several of these are really kind of universal, no matter how old your child is. And they aren't too bad of advice for when you're talking to adults as well. So we want to make sure that when we're talking that I'm going to start over here with be intentional. We want to be intentional when we're speaking with someone. We want to put away distractions. We want to make sure that we make eye contact. With preschoolers, that may mean that you're sitting on the floor with them, or you're kind of getting down on their level. We want to make use of small but frequent moments. So that can be the car ride on the way to school. It can be when you're saying goodnight to them and tucking them in at night. It can be all of those little moments that you're spending with your child. And we want to make sure that we validate their feelings or opinions when it is that we're doing it. And so that's under be intentional, because it takes some effort to do that sometimes. And we'll talk a little bit more about validating opinions in just a second. So we want to make sure that when we're talking to our child about something, that we are responding to the emotion and then the problem. Very often when someone is upset, we want to fix the problem, and that is the easiest way from A to B. And especially with children, when you can see just like this shining light in the distance of what the answer is to this problem, it's just as clear as day, and it's easy for you to see. It's very easy to say, well, then just go pick somebody else to play with, or then just play this game if that game isn't working for you. But just as important to responding to the problem is the emotion. And if we don't reflect that acknowledgement of the emotion, then very often, as you probably well know, then the fixing of the problem isn't going to be very well received. So we want to respond to the emotion with empathy. And that kind of goes back to the validating of feelings. We don't have to agree with the emotion that they may be feeling. And we don't have to agree with the degree of how they're feeling it. We just need to empathize. We need to validate that that's their feeling, that it's real for them, what it is that they're upset about, or what it is that they're happy about. It's also easy to kind of think of these things in terms of negative emotions, but positive emotions too. We want to make sure that we're validating, that we're empathizing with, you know, the fantastic thing that happened to them today as well. If there's a problem, then we want to respond to the problem by expressing confidence in the child. So we are absolutely there for them. We are in their corner, and we are wanting to fix things. But to the extent that they're able to, it's always good to keep in mind instilling that confidence in them that they can fix their problems, that they can come up with the solution. So we want to make sure that we're doing things like brainstorming ideas with them, that we're kind of getting their sense of, how do you think that we could fix this problem? What do you think is a good idea for helping in this situation? And we want to express our confidence that they can do it, that they can, it may be that we end up suggesting something to them or helping them along the way to come up with those ideas. But ultimately, as much as possible, we want to make sure that they are hearing from us that they are capable and able to handle those problems. This gets more and more important as they get older. We want to help them anticipate outcomes. So, if you are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and you can see the outcomes, then it is great and important to help to ask them to anticipate those outcomes. And you may need to help them out a little bit. What happens if you could take that toy and not let so and so come and play, but what would be that, what's going to happen when you do that, and help them anticipate those outcomes, because they may only see the one outcome, and we want to make sure that we're helping them kind of broaden those thoughts a little bit. We want to use a growth mindset, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more in a minute. And we want to avoid comparisons of suffering. I think that we've all had those moments in our life where we've been frustrated and talking about, well, this happened to me. I was late for work this morning, and then someone well-intentioned is saying, well, you think that was bad, then this, and this happened to me. Obviously, to some degree, if we're empathizing, there is a place for kind of relating to the experience. But we want to make sure that we're avoiding, well, that's, not as bad as this that happened to me, or that's, other people have things worse. If we're not acknowledging that emotion for them and acknowledging that that's real for them, then it's hard for them to hear the nuts and bolts or the problem solving part of it. We've already talked about this a little bit too, the model and encourage good sharing. Obviously, when you're talking, you want to use language that makes sure that you're modeling the emotion as well as the problem. I feel this when this happens. We want to assume, don't want to not assume. We want to ask. Every parent probably has come across this, where you are assuming what the problem is and you are just diving right in for it and coming up with all of the solutions for it, or the explanations, and then that was not even remotely close to what it was that they were upset or worried about, but it is now. So we want to ask them kind of what they're feeling and not make assumptions about it. Amber kind of touched on this a little bit, but we want to be specific but open with questions. So instead of saying, how was your day, or how did it go, then be specific with what you're asking. Tell me something that made you laugh today. Tell me something that made you smile. Tell me something that was unexpected. Those kinds of things invite them to share, but they also give them some direction. Especially if they're getting in the car at the end of the day, they're tired. They've put in a lot of work. They've done a great job, and it's hard to generate those thoughts. So if you can kind of scaffold it a little bit for them and give them a place to start, then you're more likely to get a response that you can kind of build on with them. And then you want to try to leave a conversation with a positive. You're not always going to agree in every conversation. You're not always going to come to a conclusion. But you want to, first of all, thank them for sharing. You want to reinforce them talking to you. And you want to offer specific praise. Um, we're all pretty good at dismissing praise and saying, oh, she just has to say that because she's my mom, or they just said that because, they had to. Um, but it's much harder to dismiss that praise when it's specific. Joe, I really loved the way that you shared your feelings with me, even though they weren't good, even though you were mad at me. I appreciate the way that you um, shared your thoughts. I appreciate um, your talking in a calm voice now. I appreciate all of any specific thing that you've noticed. And you can model that during the day as well with just, I appreciate that you were ready to walk out the door on time this morning. That's very much appreciated and rare in our house. So we always try to model that. So these are just some examples. I won't go through all of these but what, I can't seem to find a spot for this. There we go. But what should I say? So just some examples. It seems like you're feeling sad about this. Is that the case? Very often our kids are good at feeling the emotion, but not necessarily labeling the emotion. And so sometimes all of the negative emotions are angry, and sometimes all of the positive emotions are happy. And so it's helpful to kind of help them with those little different grades of anger. You look frustrated. You look scared. You look this or that. You look nervous. It's good to talk and give them that language of what it is that you see, and reflect their feelings. It helps them to feel heard. Let's see. And then the avoiding things are those minimizing that I talked about. You want to make sure that you don't minimize what it is that they're feeling, because if they don't feel heard in terms of their feeling, then it'll be hard to kind of get past that to get to the actual problem solving. All right, so these are just some different things that some positive statements if we have a growth mindset. So growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is when there's a problem, communicating that there is a solution, that there is, that even if something bad has happened, what it is that I can learn from it, what I can do differently next time, as opposed to, well, this is awful, this will never happen for me. So when we have a growth mindset, we learn that challenges help us grow, that mistakes are valuable, determination will help me overcome my struggles, constructive criticism is helpful, effort and attitude will help me improve, and I can learn anything I want to. And then these are just some other contrasts between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset avoids challenges, gives up easily. Basically, what you have is what you get, and it is really focused on the outcome. Whereas a growth mindset is embracing those challenges, learning to persevere in the face of failures. We all know as adults that it's not necessarily the end goal that we focus on. It's the effort that you're needing to put into something, and the learning process that's really important, that you carry on to different tasks that you do. And so treating these negative emotions and things as a challenge to overcome, but combining that with confidence that your child can overcome those things, promotes a growth mindset. So it promotes, makes it more of a problem solving, and we can absolutely do this and we can learn from it kind of mentality. All right. And then just really quickly, um, conversation is one of those things that I think that we feel like we learn very kids learn very quickly. But in reality, it's hard, and there are a lot of children that struggle with all of the different aspects of a conversation. It's more than just walking up to someone and being able to talk, and that's why it's a little anxiety provoking for very many of us. So it helps kind of to think of conversation in terms of four different parts of it. So there's a joining of the conversation, there's joining a conversation that's already happening. So we want to teach things like looking for cues, understanding tone of voice, being able to recognize that it's the right time, staying on the topic that's already being discussed. And then there's starting a conversation. So going up to someone and starting a conversation with them. What to say, how to say it, how to know if it's the right time, how to pick an appropriate topic, how to recognize if someone is interested in talking, and then maintaining a conversation. Um, a lot of times kids are able to start a conversation, but then there's the actual maintenance of it. So being able to take turns, really being able to listen and respond to your partner, staying on topic, reading nonverbal cues because those change throughout the course of a conversation, and then ending a conversation. So instead of just walking away or turning when a conversation is over, we want to teach them to look for cues um, to convey their intent. It was really great talking to you. We want to give them the words to say um, to end a conversation well, and to recognize when other people are seeing the end of that. So, just some things to teach those main parts. You can use things like videos or television shows. If you're watching something together, then use those as opportunities to reflect on different aspects of the conversation. Um, I really liked how he listened and then he reflected back what she said. So you can use those as models for them. You can say, uh, do you see how he's standing and he's turned away from her? What does that mean? And asking them questions. You can model those steps for your child in your conversation and your everyday practices when you're at the grocery store talking to someone in the store, or talking to family members. You can model those different things, and you can give them the language and expect that kind of create that expectancy for them to use social greetings um, and good listening skills and questioning. Practice listening and taking turns talking. You can do that with play, with tossing a ball back and forth. And when I have the ball, I get to talk. And then when you have the ball, you have to say something related to what I said. And that can teach them how to stay on topic. Encourage WH questions. You can make that a game. You can say, I'm going to say something, and then I want you to ask me who, what, where, when, why question about it. Teach and reinforce social greetings and wrap ups. Show them examples of facial expressions, including neutral ones. So, a lot of times when we think about facial expressions and being able to read someone's face, we think of happy and mad, and we think of the really demonstrative facial expressions, but we want to focus a little bit on some of those neutral ones, like busy or irritated or I'm done, I've kind of lost interest, those kinds of things we want to show them examples of. And we want to teach them words to show attention. So just those little things when you're having a conversation with someone and they're kind of nodding their head and they're going, yeah. those little things to show attention, we can teach kids as well to kind of help with that. All right. And then these are just some ideas, some at-home activities that build social emotional skills. These are all different things that you can do. You probably have been getting lots of practice in the last year with everyone home, but just good reminders that we can build these skills and we can work on these just as a natural part of your day as you're interacting with your child. You can use all of these little everyday moments to really reinforce and practice.
Okay, I think this is my part. What we wanted to do is give you some specific things. We've given you some general ideas, but these are things that you can, when you get your copy, you can click on and they'll specifically take you to things that you can look at and give you ideas. And they're all using the things that the ladies before have talked about with the coaching, the modeling, the role playing kinds of things. You know, when I think about the coaching and I think about the morning affirmations, I go back and I think about Saturday Night Live and the Stuart Smalley who used to be on, who would say, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me." Actually, there's something behind that. And so, you know, we have information that we're sharing with you about different kinds of affirmations. I find when I talk with kids and, you know, I ask them, can you tell me 5 good things about you? Sometimes they will have a really hard time with that. And, you know, these might be cues for you to help them think about things. With the modeling, oh, that is just such a powerful kind of thing. And these are specific things that you could be modeling with them, like the gratitude jar. You know, this is what I'm thankful for. This is what I'm so glad that happened. Or with the anger thermometer, you know, if you guys have talked about, you know, different stages of anger, and this is how angry I am, when it actually happens and you're frustrated about something, to say, yes, this is where I am, and this is how I feel. And probably my best way of handling with this would be such and such. Actually modeling how do we do this? The worrying kinds of things. When you are worried, going and sharing with them, yes, this is something I am worried about, and talking through it. Okay, you know, my first thought was, this is the absolute worst thing in the world. But is this really? You know, is this absolutely the worst thing? Is the world going to end because of this? Just different things like that, so that they can see you actually putting the things that you've talked about into action. We did include, there's also a thing with the talking on just reading eye expressions. I mean, right now, that's about all we have when we're on Zooms or things to be looking at, you know, what are their eyes saying? Actually, they've gone back and they've done some research, and the eyes are probably the most expressive part of our faces. So that's a way. You know, just are they reading the eyes of the people in the classroom, with the teacher with the mask on, or the other kids with the mask on? You know, when we look at role playing, not just coming up with the situations, but actually showing or coming up, you know, practicing I statements. You know, what we want our kids to be able to do is to advocate for themselves and to stand up for themselves and disagree if that's appropriate. But we want them to have the skills to be able to do it in a way that's going to allow it to be a successful interaction. When we were talking about reading the faces and the feelings, There's a great example in there about feeling charades. You know, like they were talking about before, sometimes when you ask kids, you know, how are you feeling or what do you think they look like? They only pick up on the very, very obvious ones when, you know, sometimes what we need to be picking up on, or, you know, this is when somebody is bored, or this is when they're done with us, kinds of things. And then there's also a little thing in there just talking about how we can keep friends during this remote time. I know this is killing our kids. I work at middle school and high school level, and they're just dying to have a chance to be involved with their friends. And we don't always want them on technology. So it gives an example of the having pen pals, or interacting that way, but different things. So we've tried to just give you some very, very specific things to go along with all the general examples that we've given throughout this. And I guess that's my part.
All right. There we go.